Continuing coverage of the high cost of homelessness and a proposed ordinance limiting where people can serve food to those in need. Murfreesboro city leaders are pushing a plan to require permits before groups can give out food in public spaces there. Fox 17 News' Jackie Del Pilar live in Murfreesboro tonight with what is behind this push. Jackie.
Stacey, I heard from a dozen advocates who voice opposition to this ordinance, saying that it is anti-homeless. But the mayor stands by it, saying it's about safety for everyone involved.
A new controversial rule in Murfreesboro would require permits to serve food to people in need in public spaces. Local advocates say this will hinder their ability to serve those in need.
I think if the city council or just any city member came out and saw what we did, there's no way they would vote yes for us to buy a permit to feed.
Mayor Shane McFarland says the ordinance comes after the city received complaints about homeless people downtown.
Yes, there are instances that we've had downtown and continue to have where business owners and residents have been either threatened or harassed by homeless downtown. And I don't want to say specifically, hey, it always happens after a feeding, but at the same time, you know, those instances have occurred.
If it's not necessarily tied to feedings in particular, why do the permit process? Because it kind of seems like you are targeting the feedings through this.
It's not targeting the feedings at all. I mean, there are two groups, 3 or 4 blocks, as a matter of fact, 2 blocks who do feedings almost every night at their facilities. I think what we are saying is that, you know, people who are just showing up without notice on a piece of property that's city-owned property, that's something that we have to go through a process to be able to do that.
That process would include taking a food safety class and paying a small fee to qualify for a permit. A handful of places are excluded from permit eligibility, including City Hall parking lots, the Civic Plaza, and the public library. The location restrictions would directly impact a food giveaway that happens each night in a City Hall parking lot.
Why then exclude the city parking lots and the Civic Plaza?
The Civic Plaza is not intended to be able to be a feeding site. Now, there are other areas that
City leaders are still ironing out the details of the ordinance. They plan to host a community meeting with local homeless advocates in the coming weeks.
Now, this ordinance would not apply to county or private property like churches and businesses. It only applies to Murfreesboro city-owned property, including sidewalks and parks.
We've learned Nashville Vice Mayor Jim Schulman is holding a 2-day public brainstorming session next week with anyone who has interest in solving this growing problem. He's invited current and former homeless people, advocates, nonprofits, taxpayers, neighbors, council members, virtually anyone who wants to be heard. Earlier this month, I showed you how other cities are addressing homelessness with nonprofits using tried and true plans, which include transitional housing, like what you're looking at right here.
And we have offered some of those solutions in our reporting. Our High Cost of Homelessness series has really highlighted just how big of a problem this is. Has that played a role in these meetings that you're calling?
Yeah. So you're reporting the information that we're getting from other sources, people who are very concerned about this issue. You know, as all these ideas are being thrown around, it's like, you know what? We need to take these ideas, figure out really what should work, and then come up with a plan.
A lot of good ideas out there. The sessions are next Tuesday and Wednesday from 5 till 8 at the Nashville Public Library downtown. They're expecting a big crowd. There's already an overflow room booked as well. First session will be held in groups around tables where everyone is comparing ideas. Vice Mayor Schulman says the second session will take those ideas and formulate a plan that everyone can get behind.
Well, a no-bid contract essentially takes the bidding part out of the entire equation, and some people are having some major problems with that, especially the Beacon Center of Tennessee. The state health department is lengthening its no-bid contract with Extend Healthcare in Hendersonville. The agreement, worth $75 million, started June of 2020 and will continue for another 2 months. Mark Cunningham with the Beacon Center says no-bid contracts are unacceptable.
I mean, this is a major problem because We are spending millions and millions of dollars, and they're tax dollars that we work hard for, on these gigantic contracts.
Cunningham says while the first contract had no bid at all, the second time it came up featured only a short window for debate.
They only allowed 5 days total from when they announced there's going to be a bidding process to the time where they picked to go with this company again.
A real issue in his eyes.
Extending this basically through the end of January of 2022. That's a ways away. Should the Tennessee Department of Health be held accountable for this?
I think that there's a couple of questions there. I think you need to say, first of all, is contact tracing still necessary, right? I mean, you could say it was necessary originally. I understand that argument, but I think you have to have the discussion. Does this still make sense for us? Because again, these are tens of millions of dollars of our money going to them.
Fox 17 emailed and called, looking to speak with Dr. Lisa Piercy of the Department of Health, whose signature appears on these documents. We were told no one would be available to speak. Still, the idea of a no-bid contract in the first place gets Cunningham thinking about the big picture.
Everything that we do in America, like, we want to compare prices. And the fact that the government is not allowing us to do this for a contract this big is really, really concerning.
Now, this contract extension will go through January 31st of 2022, so just over a couple months from now.